the iconic coastal waters of New York City. From New York Harbor and the Manhattan skyline to the beaches of Brooklyn and Yankee Stadium on the banks of the Harlem River. A park built above Manhattan's busy streets.
The Highline is New York's newest park and one of the most exciting green spaces in the world.
Exploring hidden gems in New York's northernmost borough.
I like the Bronx because it's the last vestige of real New York City.
And soaring above America's most famous bridge.
The towers were the tallest things, not just on either side of the river. They were the tallest things in the Western Hemisphere.
Now, 50,000 kilometers of eastern coastline are revealed from above. An aerial journey over America's rugged Atlantic frontier. This is America over the edge. High above New York Harbor, the Staten Island Ferry leads to one of the most iconic destinations in the world. Manhattan is home to more than 1.6 million people. It is the most densely populated borough in New York City and ranks as one of the top 20 most densely populated regions in the world. But from above this maze of concrete and glass, stretches of green can be seen. Battery Park holds a wealth of history. Beginning in 1855, it became the first immigrant depot in the world, welcoming millions of new New Yorkers from all corners of the globe. Today, Battery Park is considered a classic starting point for a tour of New York City. One kilometer north of Battery Park and half a kilometer up, a shiny beacon dominates the cityscape. One World Trade Center is the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. And from the sky, we enjoy a rare view of its 104 stories and 3 million square feet of prime office space. This miracle of engineering was built on the former site of New York's Twin Towers, destroyed in the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001. One World Trade Center took more than 8 years to complete and is considered the crown of the New York City skyline. The island of Manhattan was settled by Europeans in 1624. Some records suggest Dutch settlers bought the island from Native Americans for 60 guilders. Just over $1,000 in today's money. Nearly 4 centuries later, Lower Manhattan and its financial district is home to more than 50 skyscrapers, 150 meters or higher. The real estate for these structures and all of Manhattan is valued at more than $700 billion. Moving north beyond Canal Street, the cityscape changes. Skyscrapers and high-rises are replaced by residential neighborhoods as we soar above the Lower East Side and the East Village. Through much of the early 20th century, this was a melting pot for immigrants from around the world. Today, the Lower East Side is home to many echoes of that past, including East Houston Street's world-famous Katz's Deli.
So we started back in 1888, over 127 years ago. Right here, the Lower East Side was teeming with immigrants. This was kind of the first stop for many people as they made their journey across America. And all the food kind of blended together. You know, you took the recipes from home and applied them to the meats that you could get here.
And in the midst of this New York crossroads, Katz's Deli quickly became a melting pot of its own.
Back in the early part of the 20th century, there was a lot of what was known as the Yiddish theater in this neighborhood. And that led itself to every Friday night going to a show and going to get some deli. And then you fast forward a couple years and we actually expanded the store to what you see today. And that's about when we really started taking off in the neighborhood.
But soon Katz's would be known around the world. During the Second World War, Katz's led a campaign to send a salami to your boy in the Army.
The owner at the time, his 3 sons were serving overseas, and Grandma was nervous. They weren't eating so well. You know, the food that you get in the Army just doesn't cut it. So we started sending salamis to them, and the clever slogan, "Send a salami to your boy in the Army," became something that we've done continuously since then.
Inside, Jake Dell gives a tour of this 130-year-old culinary landmark.
It's a very old system that we have here at Katz's.
Turn it on the way out, sir.
When you come inside, you get a ticket, and that ticket is your check. And as you go from station to station, everything gets marked on there. As you can see, it's a little hectic right now. When you come in, you got the grill items up front and the sandwiches, which is really what we're known for. You get right in the middle over there. We can make anywhere up to about 3,000 or 4,000 sandwiches a day, knock it out like it's nothing. We make our own pastrami, we make our own corned beef, we make our own turkeys, our own briskets, everything right here in Katz's Deli.
And behind the counter, the true secrets of Katz's are revealed.
So this right here is our main pastrami pot. The pastrami at this point has been cured, it's been smoked, it's been boiled, and now it's steaming. That's the last step of the process before it's taken out, it's trimmed, and it's carved, everything by hand. All right. We go through almost 15,000 pounds of pastrami every week, about 8,000 pounds of corned beef, 2,000 or 3,000 pounds on the brisket, a couple thousand on the turkeys. When you factor that in with the salamis and the hot dogs, it's almost 30,000 pounds of meat every week.
Katz's Deli has become a destination for New Yorkers, tourists, and even celebrities whose photos adorn these walls. But for Jake Dell, it's 5 generations of being a good neighbor.
So I've been here my whole life. I've been a part of Katz's pretty much since the womb. As you can see over my shoulder, there's a neon sign that says Jake's Bar Mitzvah. That was me. I had my bar mitzvah right here in the store. I can't imagine a more special place in the world than here at Katz's. Everyone has just these wonderful memories, traditions, and things that they just hold on to, and they bring them all together here over food, and I'm honored to be a part of that tradition.
As we continue from above, the New York cityscape rises high once again. Beginning at 33rd Street and 5th Avenue, Midtown Manhattan boasts some of the most architecturally distinct structures in the world. The Empire State Building was completed in 1931 and is the 5th tallest building in America. Its steel frame design is clad with Indiana limestone and granite, 10 million bricks, and more than 6,000 windows. Its spire is a masterpiece all its own, a 60-meter aluminum antenna that broadcasts all major television and FM radio stations to the New York area. Amazingly, the Empire State Building was completed in just over a year. From above, the magnitude and beauty of the project can truly be felt. New York's most famous skyscraper looms over dozens of more modern, less impressive structures, some which took many times longer to complete. The Empire State Building has been named America's favorite building by the American Institute of Architects. It even has its own zip code.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
Just a kilometer to the northeast, the Chrysler Building is another architectural gem. It too is known for its Art Deco design. From above, details not easily seen on the ground can truly be experienced. Decorative eagles adorn the corners of the 61st floor. And further up, the building's unique crown is made up of 7 radiating terraced arches with triangular vaulted windows. Like the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building was also completed in 1931. Part of a city-wide race to erect the world's tallest structure. The race was taken so seriously and so secretive, the spire was delivered in 4 pieces and assembled inside the building. In the end, the Chrysler Building briefly held the title of world's tallest building until the Empire State Building was completed just a few months later. "15 blocks to the north, winding our way above this massive concrete jungle, a vast expanse of green is revealed once again. Central Park covers 843 acres of Middle and Upper Manhattan. But the park didn't always look like this. It was designed by architect William Olmsted in 1857. And from the sky, we can appreciate the incredible effort required to mold the masterpiece that exists today. First, gunpowder was used to blast rock, and swampland was filled in. Then lakes were dug and trees brought in. Today, the park welcomes 40 million visitors each year, keen to experience the billion-gallon reservoir and more than 90 kilometers of walking trails. Central Park is Manhattan's most famous park, on the ground. But just above ground, there is another.
The Highline is actually an old train track. It runs about 1.5 miles from roughly Gansevoort Street all the way to 34th Street. It had an incredibly short life. It was only used for about 30 years, but it has recently been reborn as New York's newest park and one of the most exciting green spaces in the world.
The Highline originated in the 1930s when elevated train systems were built to avoid killing New Yorkers walking the streets. Their construction eliminated 105 pedestrian crossings in Manhattan.
Because the Highline was derelict for 30 years, all of the plantings are based on the natural seed droppings, the indigenous plants that would have been found when this was an abandoned train track, now carefully replanted to bring it to life.
And up the stairs, Seth Campbell reveals one of Manhattan's favorite getaways.
So we're here on the Highline, surrounded by the indigenous plants that are reminding us of what this area was when it was a derelict train trellis. Birds would collect seeds, drop them on the Highline, and the plants would self-germinate. Now, with the gardeners here, they carefully maintain local plantings to remind us of what the Highline was.
Trains were popular in Manhattan for decades, but ultimately trucks became the transportation mode of choice. These elevated tracks were abandoned.
A couple of guys who lived in the neighborhood began to say, let's save the Highline. They brought in a lot of neighborhood people, a lot of media attention, and over the next 15 years, they raised the money to open the first section here.
Today, a well-organized team of gardeners keeps the Highline up and running.
On the Highline, you'll find about 25% native plants to the Northeast, United States, 50% native to the rest of the United States, and the rest are sort of chosen from around the world, but with a naturalistic look. You'll see a variety of themes. Coming up is a grasslands area. There's some more wooded areas. There's an area called the thicket. It tends to move in a way that's naturalistic, but you can see differences and varieties in the plantings.
Isabella Yager says working on the Highline is a demanding but rewarding job.
The horticulture staff, there's 10 full-time year-round horticulture employees and then 3 seasonals. And we start pretty early in the morning at 6:30 because it gets super busy and very hot in the afternoon. But it's a really wonderful place to work. We're a part of the Parks Department, which is why it's free for the public, and it's open 365 days a year.
And she believes it's a special place worth preserving and building for the future.
I love it because I think it's changing people's understanding of what plants can look like and how they can work. I think all these are chosen for their sustainability, which is really important at this point.
My favorite part of the Highline is locals and visitors alike don't realize that this has been here since 1934. People think of this as brand new. This is not new construction. This is a new renovation and restoration of a completely forgotten segment of New York history. My first time up here, it was fantastic walking along and thinking about the industrial heritage of New York that is now completely gone.
Heading northeast from Central Park, we continue our aerial survey above New York City. Beyond Manhattan's Upper East Side and Harlem, the Harlem River marks a marine boundary, separating the island of Manhattan from the Bronx. The Harlem River flows 13 kilometers from the East River to the Hudson River. And at the river's halfway point, one of the Bronx's best-known landmarks can be seen. Yankee Stadium is home to Major League Baseball's New York Yankees. This stadium began construction in 2006 and was completed less than 3 years later. Its design is intended to evoke memories of the original park, which stood just a block away. And from the air, we can truly appreciate that effort. The stadium's limestone and granite exterior is the same used at the old Yankee Stadium, and the Empire State Building. Continuing northeast, the vast expanse of the Bronx can be seen. From the sky, it's easy to see why this borough ranks third in population density in the United States. Even without the massive skyscrapers of Manhattan, the Bronx is home to nearly 1.5 million people. But the Bronx is also home to pristine nature and scenery. Five kilometers from Yankee Stadium, the New York Botanical Garden marks 250 acres of green space. Founded in 1891, the facility is home to 50 gardens, 28 specialty gardens, and more than 1 million living plants. The garden takes part in global research projects, using its state-of-the-art laboratories to better understand plants and their relationship to each other, to ecosystems, and to people. Just to the south, the Botanical Garden's animal counterpart can be found at the Bronx Zoo. The Bronx Zoo covers 265 acres and hosts more than 2 million visitors each year. It is the largest city zoo in America, and from above, we enjoy a rare experience, looking down on the birds, reptiles, and bears that live in the heart of the city. But the Bronx is more than ballparks and science facilities. It is a borough built on neighborhoods. On Arthur Avenue, resident Isaac Moore reveals the Bronx's hidden gems.
The Bronx is the northernmost borough of New York City. We are the only land-based borough of New York City. And Arthur Avenue is pretty much exactly the center of the borough. The borough of the Bronx is named actually after the Bronx River. The Bronx River, of course, is named after the man Jonas Bronk, who was originally a landowner in the South Bronx area. And so people used to say, where are you going? We're going up to see the Bronx, spelled B-R-O-N-C-K-S.
And ever since the earliest settlers arrived here, Moore says the Bronx has been about the people.
People have been living in the Bronx for hundreds of years, especially Native Americans. This had a big Native population. Europeans came in with the Dutch, 1600s. It's a really diverse borough. Each new wave of immigrants comes to the Bronx. They usually start out in the South and move north. Every generation or two, it's a new ethnic group. So it used to be Italians, there were Irish, there's a lot of Dominicans now, there's a lot of Mexicans, and it's constantly evolving and changing. There were problems in the 70s and 80s, and everybody tends to focus on the bad times. There were a lot of buildings burning down. In the past 20 years, the people in the borough have really brought it back. We haven't had a lot of outside investment, so all of the work that you see done in our borough from where we were is primarily done by Bronxites.
Moore begins the tour at the Arthur Avenue Retail Market, founded by Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia.
Our first stop is Arthur Avenue. Arthur Avenue is considered by us Bronxites to probably be one of the last remaining Italian enclaves in New York City. A lot of these restaurants have been around here for a good 100 years and are still going strong. This is where a lot of us come for family dinners, clams, oysters, mussels, cigars. It was actually named after President Chester A. Arthur. Well, this is Arthur Avenue market that we're in, the retail market. It was founded in the late 30s. They have fruits, vegetables, Italian food, dried meats, fresh meats. The retail market even has its own beer hall run by the Ramirez brothers. This is the Bronx Beer Hall, and they serve Jonas Bronx brewed beer. Jonas Bronx Brewery is owned by a guy named Steve Nalen, who's a Bronxite, lives in Woodlawn. He named his beer company after the Bronx family, and he had to actually trace down the remaining member of the Bronx family. This guy named Bill Bronx, who lives somewhere in upstate New York, and he had to get the go-ahead from this guy. He's like, really, that's my ancestor? Now we have Jonas Bronx Brewery and this awesome egg cream stout.
Next, 3 kilometers to the northeast, and just north of the New York Botanical Garden, Gun Hill Road is home to a true Bronx establishment.
Our second destination is Rosario Cigars in the Bronx on Gun Hill Road. It's all right, up the Bronx. Neighborhoody place, Dominican rolled cigars by Bronxites. I come here all the time. It's kind of out of the way, but we like it that way.
Inside, the legacy of this family operation can be felt.
Love coming here. It's one of my favorite places in the Bronx. Rolled by these gentlemen here who are excellent at what they do. Old-timey cigar rollers from the Dominican Republic. The owner is this gentleman, fine gentleman right up here. And they make a fantastic product. Come out here, you hang out on the couches, have a beer or two, talk some smack, and they're always welcoming and great.
Rosario's has stood here for decades, with 4 generations devoting themselves to the craft. Their cigars use a unique blend of Dominican Piloto Cubano, as well as Honduran and Ecuadorian tobaccos, to create the final product.
As you saw, they were cutting them over here, and behind me is the best smelling room in the Bronx, if not of all New York City, and you can bank on that. There you go, my man.
But Isaac Moore's favorite Bronx getaway can be found in his own backyard.
This is the third and final stop in the Bronx. This is my neighborhood of Morris Park. This is Loretto Playground. We come here often, most Friday nights. Morris Park used to be a racetrack, and around the 20s it turned into a residential neighborhood. It's a lot of middle-income families, a lot of working-class people. Used to be predominantly Italian. It's a little more diverse than that now.
Here, Loretto Playground is the site of a growing Friday night tradition.
The game of bocce, it's pretty simple. You have a little white ball called the Polino, and the goal is to get your bocce balls as close to the Polino as you can. Whoever has the most balls closest to the Polino, you score by that number of balls. I am a mediocre to not good bocce player, but I love it.
The Bronx has been built by generations of hard-working families for hundreds of years. In Morris Park, Isaac Moore, his friends and neighbors are building on that legacy.
I like the Bronx because it's, to me, it's the last vestige of real New York City. You have dummies randomly whistling on the street. You have musicians, you have artists, you have inventors, you have new waves of immigrants. It still has a neighborhood feeling that, you know, it's been driven out by like billionaires in Manhattan. Like, you're not gonna find Arthur Avenue in Manhattan.
At the southeast corner of the Bronx, Fort Schuyler is a 19th century fortification built in the aftermath of the War of 1812. It is located on a spit of land known as Throg's Neck. And just above the fort, Throg's Neck Bridge spans the East River, connecting the Bronx and Queens. Queens is New York's largest and easternmost borough. It was named after Portuguese Princess Catherine of Braganza, who became Queen of England as the bride of Charles II in 1661. And 7 kilometers southwest of Throgs Neck Bridge, some of Queens' best-known landmarks come into view. Flushing Meadows is a massive facility, covering nearly 900 acres. It is home to the Billie Jean King National Tennis Center, the site of the U.S. Open, as well as the New York Hall of Science, the Queens Museum of Art, and Citi Field, home to baseball's New York Mets. The park may be best known for the Unisphere, a stainless steel globe constructed to celebrate the space age at the 1964 World's Fair. Moving northeast, 2 more symbols of Queens line the banks of the East River. Rikers Island is one of the largest correctional facilities in the world. From the sky, it is clear why this location was chosen: a self-contained parcel of land surrounded by the rapid currents of the river. Originally a training ground for Northern soldiers during the Civil War, Rikers Island was transformed into a jail in 1932. Rikers Island has been called the largest penal colony in the world and is home to more than 10,000 inmates. On shore, Queens LaGuardia Airport welcomes 31 million passengers to the borough each year. Along with John F. Kennedy Airport to the south, the sky above Queens is one of the most congested airspaces in the world. And from above, we have a rare window into the aviation world, an incredible feat of logistics, with 4 terminals serving more than a dozen airlines, and more than 1,000 takeoffs and landings each day. From the air, Queens can be an overwhelming sight. 2 million people occupying dozens of neighborhoods, covering 280 square kilometers. The borough is considered the most ethnically diverse area in the world, with immigrants from 100 countries speaking 138 languages. And in the heart of the Queens neighborhood of Corona, there is a king. Like Manhattan's Katz's Deli, the Ice King of Corona has become a Queens cultural landmark.
This is the Lemon Ice King of Corona. We've been here for over 70 years. We manufacture the best ices on the Northeast.
Over the years, Vincent Barbaccia has seen the Corona neighborhood evolve. He says the ice business has evolved with it.
It started off where it was mostly Italian. Now through the years, it's turned more Latinos that have moved in here. And we see that in the products that we sell, where we used to sell more pistachio, orange, lemon. Now we're selling more of the tropical flavors, which goes with the neighborhood. You know, I've been here this long that I've actually watched the kids that grew up here now come here with their kids. This is a destination for people from all over to come and see and taste the flavors that we produce here.
Inside the 108th Street landmark, Barbaccia is 4 decades in to the flavored ice business.
We got the pistachios here, we got cantaloupe, we got peach, we got raspberry. So everything is served out of this area. I'm always here, you know, directing the guys as far as like changing cans that need to be changed, pick up another flavor. And if it does get that busy, usually I'll even step in and I start serving customers. So it's not unusual to see me serving customers here.
And on this hot August day, the crowds begin to gather. Some are locals. Others are returning here, carrying on family tradition.
We came all the way from Falls Church, Virginia, just to have this Italian ice.
Vincent Barbaccia says there is something special about his brand of flavored ice, and something special about the neighborhood known as Corona.
Place is special for me because I grew up in this neighborhood. This was my first job. I worked it through my high school years, through my school years, and we were like part of the family here. So, and it's always been like that.
"20 kilometers to the southwest, the borough of Brooklyn extends to the waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Here at the southwest corner of Long Island, Brighton Beach makes the Manhattan skyline seem a world away. Brighton Beach and Coney Island Beach have served as a destination for New York City residents since the 19th century, when this coast was lined by resorts. Centuries later, the modern subway system makes it an ideal weekend getaway. Moving north, Brooklyn stretches for kilometers. More people live in Brooklyn than any other New York borough, more than 2.5 million people. It is a mix of neighborhoods, including Borough Park, Bensonhurst, and Flatbush, as well as busy expressways leading to Queens and Manhattan. On the ground, Greenwood Cemetery is one of the most famous graveyards in America. New Yorkers say it is also the most sought after. According to the New York Times, it is the ambition of the New Yorker to live upon the Fifth Avenue, to take his airings in the park, and to sleep with his fathers in Greenwood. Northeast of the cemetery, the Williamsburg skyline is an impressive sight. For years, this Brooklyn neighborhood was home to a number of cultural enclaves, including Jewish, Polish, and Puerto Rican communities. Today, Williamsburg may be best known for its contemporary music and art scene. And just to the south, America's most famous bridge connects Brooklyn to Manhattan.
The Brooklyn Bridge spans the East River and today connects the boroughs of Brooklyn and Manhattan. When it was completed in 1883, it was the first physical span to connect the largest city in America, New York, which was then just the island of Manhattan, and the third largest city in America, Brooklyn. The Brooklyn Bridge today ranks 91st in the world in terms of longest suspension bridges. When it was finished, it was by far the longest in the world.
It is a 130-year-old New York icon, providing passage to tens of thousands of vehicles and pedestrians each day. When it was built, the bridge was considered one of the great projects of its time, back when much of modern Brooklyn was farmland.
The bridge took 14 years to complete. The era we're talking about, from 1869 to 1883, featured church steeples and brownstones as your typical skyline elements. So if you look behind me, take a mental eraser and wipe off every skyscraper you see. The towers behind me, which are identical and represent monuments to the two great cities the bridge was connecting, were the tallest things, not just on either side of the river. They were the tallest things in the Western Hemisphere.
But this massive construction project didn't come without challenges. On the Brooklyn side, workers reached rock 13 meters below water. On the Manhattan side, it was much deeper. And it was here, working in caissons underwater, that problems began.
Below 50 feet, the air pressure was so great that when their 8-hour shift was over and they climbed back up the ladder, a lot of them collapsed once they reached the surface. In other extreme cases, they crumbled in excruciating pain that started in their joints. The pain was so severe, people started calling it the bends because they didn't know what to do with their limbs from the severe pain.
The bends was caused by the rapid change in pressure from deep beneath the river to the surface. In later years, the condition would be known as decompression sickness.
And of course, this is the era before workers' comp and Social Security and life insurance and all the other safety nets we have today. So these poor immigrants fresh off the boat, working for $2 a day, were literally risking their lives. And little did they know that some of them would die from a disease they could not have predicted.
And that was just below the water. Above the surface, the work was just beginning.
Once they built the anchorages, they were also at the same time building these giant stone towers made out of limestone and granite. Once the towers are complete, they can actually start spinning the cable.
On the bridge today, the fruits of all those efforts can be seen.
What's incredible besides the views is the fact that you can actually connect with history, because here I'm touching one of the 4 main suspension cables. And the great thing about steel is it can last pretty much indefinitely as long as you prevent moisture from seeping in and corroding the metal. So even though it's been resurfaced numerous times, if you can cut this open, the original 19 strands have never been replaced. And there's about 3,500 miles of little steel wire strands within each of the 4 suspension cables. One of the main innovative features of this incredible suspension bridge are actually these diagonal stays. The diagonal stays are technically not necessary in the sense that if I were to cut them off, the bridge would not collapse. They create additional redundancies. They create a much higher margin of safety. They keep this bridge stiff and prevent it from swaying.
More than a century later, the Brooklyn Bridge remains a dependable mode of transportation for Brooklyn residents and Manhattanites, and stands as a great symbol of America.
The Brooklyn Bridge symbolizes New York and New Yorkers. We're tough, we're resilient. It was considered the unbuildable bridge at the time, and they surmounted insurmountable obstacles to build what was then the longest span in the world. And while a lot of people were predicting it would collapse the first time it would carry a weight, it's still standing 132 years later. And speaking of tenacity, the chief engineer who designed the bridge, which was going to be his crowning work, actually died before the construction was scheduled to begin, and his son took over. And the son became an invalid 3 years into the process, and the son's wife helped him finish the bridge. If that's not a New York story, I don't know what is.
Finally, to the southwest, another New York bridge leads to the city's final borough. The Verrazano Narrows Bridge connects Brooklyn to Staten Island. This double-deck suspension bridge is named in honor of Giovanni de Verrazano, the first European to explore New York Harbor in 1524. But human activity here on Staten Island can be traced back much earlier. Archaeologists have located Native American sites dating back 5,000 years, and evidence of Paleo-Indian tools 9,000 years before that. The first European residents here were Dutch settlers who called the area Staten Island, or States Island. Today, the borough is home to roughly 475,000 people. Staten Island is the southernmost borough in New York City, and the southernmost point in New York State. Now, heading back across New York Harbor to Manhattan, one final landmark remains. The Statue of Liberty was built in 1875, a gift from France to the people of the United States. This neoclassical sculpture rises 46 meters. It is another iconic symbol of America, and one many say is best experienced at night. The Manhattan skyline is recognized around the world. But at night, from above, the magic of the city comes alive. In the heart of New York Harbor, the Statue of Liberty faces southeast, a welcome symbol to arriving ships. Lady Liberty herself is modeled after the Roman goddess of liberty, and the torch is a symbol of enlightenment. The statue's official name is Liberty Enlightening the World. Moving to the north, up the Hudson River, we have an incredible perspective on the streets and avenues that make up this great city. Looking all the way down 10th Avenue, thousands of cars can be seen. And high above, New York's two Art Deco masterpieces are an incredible sight. It is amazing to imagine the Empire State Building took just over a year to complete. Or that its spire was originally designed as a docking station for dirigibles. To the north, the Chrysler Building rises 319 meters. Though it lost the race to hold the title of world's tallest building, the beauty of its design far outweighs the century-old contest. Further north, in Midtown, a glow rising from Times Square and the streets surrounding is a sight unlike anything that can be seen from the ground. Finally, over Lower Manhattan, we complete our journey back where we began. One World Trade Center is a stunning sight at night. But it's more than a miracle of engineering. It represents the triumph of human spirit and the resilience of an entire nation in the face of adversity. From the Staten Island Ferry and the Manhattan skyline, to the neighborhoods of Queens and the Bronx, to Brighton Beach and the Brooklyn Bridge, the boroughs of New York City have captured the imagination of the world. And from this bird's eye view, we see the pieces that make up New York in a whole new light. From the immigrant depots and symbols of freedom that have welcomed generations of New Yorkers, to the neighborhoods of 19th and 20th century settlers, to the skyscrapers and financial centers just blocks away that symbolize the city's prosperity, and are fueling the future. Here, on the edge of America.